Title: Princess Leonor cried before saying, "I do." The palace bells rang across Madrid. The world watched. Cameras flashed. The daughter of Spain stood in front of destiny. Princess Leonor, calm on the outside, trembling within. But moments before she said the words, "I do," her eyes filled with tears. No one expected it. No one was prepared for what she whispered just seconds before the vows began. It wasn't a rehearsed smile. It wasn't a royal performance. It was real, genuine, painful, the kind of moment that reminds everyone that even future queens have hearts that can break. But why did she cry? What happened behind those golden palace doors before the ceremony that changed everything? To understand that, we have to go back to the night before the wedding. In the royal suite, the air was heavy. Her wedding gown hung by the window, glistening in the soft moonlight. A symbol of perfection, of duty, of power. Yet Leonor sat quietly by her dressing table, reading a letter. A private letter. The handwriting, familiar, emotional. It was from someone she had once loved deeply. Someone she wasn't supposed to love. For years, Leonor's life was shaped by duty, protocol, and the eyes of a nation. Every word, every smile, every decision, measured, judged, recorded. Her wedding was not just a union. It was a political alliance. A national event meant to define Spain's future. But that night, as she held that letter, her future felt less like a crown and more like a cage. Morning arrived. The palace awoke with noise, perfume, and whispers. Stylists, photographers, and royal attendants flooded the halls. But Leonor's eyes were red. She hadn't slept. Her sister, Sofia, noticed first. She reached for her hand and whispered, "You don't have to be perfect. Just be you." That moment broke something inside Leonor. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to feel, not as a princess, not as the heir to the throne, but as a young woman about to make the most public decision of her life. The makeup team tried to hide the traces of tears, but emotion doesn't fade under powder. When her father, King Felipe, entered the room, the tension was undeniable. He smiled, proud, but his voice carried the weight of a king who had made sacrifices too. "Leonor," he said softly, "remember who you are." Those words, spoken with love but heavy with expectation, cut through her heart. As the car rolled toward the cathedral, Spain stood still. Crowds filled the streets. Flags waved. The sound of trumpets echoed through the city. Yet inside the car, silence. Leonor stared out the window, her reflection framed by lace and gold. Her mother, Queen Letizia, reached over and took her hand. "It's okay to cry," she said quietly. "Queens cry too." That was the moment it began, the tears that the cameras would later capture, the tears that would become the headline of every newspaper. When she stepped out of the car, she wasn't just the future Queen of Spain. She was a daughter holding the weight of a nation on her shoulders. Inside the cathedral, light poured through centuries-old glass, painting colors across the marble floor. The groom stood waiting, his face unreadable but calm. Leonor took each step with grace, but her eyes shimmered. Every step brought back memories, of childhood, of laughter, of a world before royal duty took over. When she reached the altar, her hands trembled. The priest's voice filled the air. "Do you, Princess Leonor, take," but before he could finish, her eyes dropped. For a moment, she hesitated. The audience gasped. Cameras zoomed in. And then, she cried. Not a quiet tear. A deep, unstoppable wave of emotion. It wasn't sadness alone. It was everything: love, pressure, duty, loss, hope, all at once. Her groom reached for her hand, whispering something only she could hear. And in that whisper, her tears softened. She nodded, smiling through the pain, and finally said the words the world had waited to hear: "I do." Applause filled the cathedral, but not everyone clapped out of joy. Some royal advisors exchanged glances. For them, those tears meant uncertainty. For the people, they meant truth. For Leonor, they meant freedom. Later that evening, at the royal banquet, Leonor sat quietly, her tiara catching the light. The laughter around her felt distant. She turned to her sister and said, "Sofia, I thought I'd feel different." Sofia smiled. Maybe being queen isn't about feeling different. Maybe it's about feeling everything. That night, as the palace lights dimmed, Leonor stood on the balcony overlooking Madrid. The city glowed below her. Somewhere, in that sea of lights, were millions of hearts who now saw her not as a royal figure, but as one of them, someone human, someone real, someone who dared to show emotion in a world built on perfection. The next morning, the newspapers called it the moment that defined a future queen. Some criticized her for breaking royal composure. Others praised her for showing courage. But one thing was certain, her tears changed everything. They reminded the world that behind the crown was a heart that beats, that breaks, that hopes. And though the cameras moved on, though the headlines faded, that moment, Princess Leonor's tears before saying, "I do," became a symbol of truth in a world of appearances. A reminder that even those born to rule are still, above all, beautifully human. Because in that one moment of vulnerability, Spain didn't just see a princess. They saw a woman becoming a queen, not by tradition, but by heart.